The sky above Elithra Prime was a canvas of fire and ruin. Through the reinforced viewport, Dr. Kel Rin watched as enemy orbital strikes painted red scars across the clouds. His hand, trembling, rested on an ancient console, a relic his people, the Elithri, swore they would never need. He whispered a desperate plea into the beacon. Please, someone, anyone. The Elithri were not warriors. They were poets of the cosmos, charting nebulae, singing to comets, and building telescopes that listened to the very tides of starlight. But the Carcos Dominion, with their iron voices and slave brands, cared little for celestial songs. 3 days. That's all it took for Elithra's formidable orbital rings to buckle and fail. In the command center, Commander Arya Solin's eyes were raw from sleepless nights. "Evacuation status," she demanded. The reply was grim. 36%, Commander. Ground corridors are contested. We've lost the northern skyways. Arya stared at the war map, watching friendly icons flicker and die. Memories flooded her mind, her mother's voice telling star stories, the scent of rain on the planet's vast oceans. Then her comms officer spoke, his voice strained. Dr. Rin requests permission to activate Beacon 12. Beacon 12. A myth, a relic buried deep beneath the citadel when the Elithri first ventured into the void. For centuries, they had laughed at it. No one would answer a call from strangers, they said. Not in this cold, indifferent galaxy. Arya's response was soft as a prayer. Do it. Deep below, Dr. Rin's hands flew across a control panel untouched for 6 generations. The beacon awoke, a magnificent lattice of crystal, copper, and ancient oaths, and threaded its call through forgotten cosmic way lines. The message was clear, simple, and unarmed. This is Elithra Prime. Civilian centers under assault. We are explorers, not soldiers. To any who hear, we request sanctuary, escort, aid, anything. Please. The signal leaped across the void. One system, 3, 11, 20. Most ignored it. Some sent condolences. One particularly cynical power replied with an invoice for their services. But one response came without a price. Aboard the Terran defense ship Aegis, Admiral Maya Gupta was reviewing fleet readiness. She had a unique talent for listening to the silence in a room, for sensing the fine line where fear met duty. Admiral, her aide, Lieutenant Noor Al-Kindi, entered her ready room. We've picked up a distress signal, non-aligned species. The translation is clean. Range? Maya asked, her gaze steady. 31 light-years. The Carcos Dominion is in system. Orbital strikes are confirmed. Maya pulled the transmission onto her personal holoscreen. The words were unadorned, stripped of all pride. Please, anything. She glanced out at the drill deck where pilots laughed, blissfully unaware, as if they had all the time in the world. What's the status of the 3rd and 7th fleets? She asked. The 3rd is in the Talos corridor. 7th is on refit, but their carriers are hot and ready. Maya exhaled, a slow, deliberate breath. Then she tapped a command string that only 4 living admirals in the entire Terran Defense Network knew. Article 9, the Humanitarian Intervention Charter. The very air in the room seemed to hold its breath. Signal, Terra Command, Maya said, her voice ringing with authority. We're invoking Article 9. Initiate total mobilization of all assets in range. We move now. We ask for forgiveness later. Lieutenant Noor blinked once, a single, sharp motion. Yes, Admiral. Across the breadth of human space, a quiet hum turned into a roar. Logistics AIs rerouted fuel like blood finding a new path to a wound. Peaceful colonial defense boats flipped their beacons from placid green to war-bright red. The core oath baked into the very foundation of the Terran Defense Network, if they call, we answer, lit up like a new constellation. On the Dreadnought TDS Unbroken, Captain Leon Idris cut a training exercise short. You heard her, people. Playtime is over. Spin up the spine rail. I want coil temperatures in the green by the first jump. Aboard the stealth frigate TDS Wraith, Commander Rhea Okoye allowed herself a grim, humorless smile. Finally, get me the enemy fleet's comm architecture. I want to be a ghost inside their network before they even know we're there. On Luna Dock, Chief Engineer Juno Park slammed a pressure seal shut with oil-stained gloves. "What's the big rush?" a young tech asked, bewildered by the sudden frenzy. Juno just tilted her head towards the stars. Someone asked. Back on Elithra Prime, the situation was spiraling from bad to worse. Carcos gunships lanced through the tattered remnants of the atmospheric shields. Troop landers disgorged soldiers in imposing black armor, and processing centers for the captured began to fill. "Commander Solon," Dr. Rin's voice crackled over the comms, tight with a new, unfamiliar emotion. We have a reply." Arya closed her eyes, bracing for the worst. "Who?" "Terrans," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "Humans. The translation is simple." He read it aloud. "Elithra Prime. We received your call. We are inbound with relief forces. Hold fast. Civilians first. ETA 18 hours. 18 hours. Arya stared at the burning sky. It felt like an eternity. "How long can we hold?" she asked her tactical officer. 6 hours, maybe. 8, if the ocean batteries survive. Arya switched her comms to the planetary defense net. Her voice was firm, unwavering. "All defense units, this is Commander Arya Solon. Help is coming. I don't care what lies the Carcos have told you. Hold the lines around the civilian shelters. Don't waste your lives on pointless glory. We are buying hours. Nothing more, nothing less." In a crowded shelter deep underground, a young Elithri child clutched a chipped star globe, her world burning above. "Will the storytellers come?" she asked her father. He managed a weak smile, pulling her close. "I think. The storytellers fly ships. Space is vast, empty, and cold, but it feels a lot smaller when humanity decides to be in one place at the same time. From the massive shipyards of Mars, the carrier TDS Seraphim slid free of her birthing cradles, 240 fighters humming with deadly potential in her belly. From the icy moon of Europa, the Marine Assault Group loaded their drop pods like seeds of thunder, ready to be sown. The Colonial Patrol, on a routine route from New Durban, diverted course without hesitation, their captain swapping a festival uniform for combat blacks in a single, fluid motion. The numbers climbed relentlessly. 38 ships, 59, 76, 109. An armada of hope, converging on a single point in the dark. Aboard the flagship Aegis, Admiral Maya stood before a wall of holographic faces. Squadron leaders, ship captains, logistics chiefs, and medics who spoke in tonnages of blood plasma instead of patient numbers. "This is not conquest," she declared, her voice resonating with every soul connected to the briefing. "This is not about politics. This is Article 9. Civilians are under the gun. Our job is simple. Pull the knife, break the hand that holds it, and keep the heart of their world beating. Our rules of engagement are clear. If it targets civilians, it ceases to exist. We will damage the enemy, but we will not scar the people we came here to protect. We fight hard. We fight clean. Any questions?" There were none. Only the quiet, resolute determination of a people who, when faced with a cry for help from the darkness, chose to answer. The human armada dropped out of slipspace, a silent, deadly tide surging into existence. On the bridge of the Carcos flagship, strategist Vorek watched in disbelief as his tactical displays flooded with a sea of unknown contacts. His sensor chief's voice was a low rasp, filled with a tension Vorek hadn't heard in years. "New arrivals, sir. Massive numbers. They're not in any of our registries." Vorek allowed himself a smug, dismissive smile. Primitives, stumbling into a contest they couldn't comprehend. "Transmit," he ordered, his voice dripping with condescension. Inform these interlopers they are intruding upon a lawful acquisition by the Carcos Dominion. The reply was not a single transmission, but an overwhelming wave that washed over every frequency, every band, every whisper space between the stars. The voice was female, as level and unyielding as starlight itself. Carcos Dominion Forces. This is Admiral Maya Gupta of the Terran Defense Network. You are currently targeting civilians on a recognized and protected world. Cease all hostilities immediately. Power down your weapons and prepare to withdraw. You have 30 seconds. After that, my people will protect Elithra Prime without your consent. Vorex sneered. The audacity was almost amusing. They're bluffing, he declared to his bridge crew, who now looked far less certain than he felt. He was wrong. On the bridge of the Terran flagship, the Aegis, Lieutenant Noor looked up from her console, her expression grim. Time, Admiral. Maya Gupta gave a single, decisive nod. All ships, weapons free, keep it clean. The Dreadnought, christened the Unbroken, spoke first. 8 tungsten slugs, each the size of a city dropship, were launched from her spinal railgun at a breathtaking fraction of light speed. They didn't strike the nearest Carcos cruiser as projectiles. They arrived like immutable laws of physics, laws that stated in no uncertain terms that metal must yield, that shields will fail, and that bullies, no matter how powerful, will bleed. The cruiser fractured, then disintegrated into a cloud of superheated vapor and shattered dreams of conquest. On the opposite flank, the carrier Seraphim opened her cavernous launch bays. Fighters peeled out into the void, glittering like sparks struck from a cosmic anvil. They effortlessly fell into diamond formations, their engines pulsing with the practiced heartbeat of veterans. Dragonhead Squadron, came the calm, focused voice of Commander Imani Cho. Mark Vectors 317. Target their engines and communications first. We strand them. Far below, at the shadowy edge of the battle, the stealth frigate Wraith moved like a predator. Her hull shifted, its skin absorbing light and sensor pings, blending into the background noise of space. Aboard her, Commander Ria Okoye watched a dozen separate data streams converge into a single, critical point on her display. There you are, she murmured, a hunter spotting her prey. The flagship's primary packet router? Her electronic warfare technician grinned, his fingers already dancing across his console. Recommend we ask politely for access, Commander. Ria's return smile was thin and dangerous. By all means. They didn't fire a single weapon. Instead, they whispered into the heart of the Carcos network. A poison pill of code. They looped targeting frames by a mere 6 seconds, just enough to make the enemy aim where their targets were, not where they would be. They inverted the friend or foe identification tags across a narrow band, turning brother against brother. For 3 terrible, chaotic minutes, the Carcos siege line fired at ghosts. Then, in a horrifying cascade of errors, they began firing at each other. On the Aegis, Admiral Maya's eyes tracked the beautiful, deadly arcs of light. Shift our weight to the south, Pincer. Box them in. Keep them from the planet. I want 0 heat on civilian airspace. Emboldened by confusion, a Carcos battleship attempted a blind, desperate rush. Captain Idris, commanding the Unbroken, rolled his mighty dreadnought, presenting a fresh wall of redundant armor to absorb the incoming fire. He then answered with the full, devastating might of his ship. The enemy battleship became 2 things in an instant: a rapidly expanding field of wreckage and a stark cautionary tale for any who still thought this was a battle they could win. The Carcos fought like entitled lords who had never been told no. They were shocked, enraged, and clumsy. The Terrans fought like rescue workers armed for war, fast, decisive, unafraid to bleed if it meant saving a life. It was a clash of philosophy as much as technology. 13 minutes was all it took to break the siege. 21 minutes, and the entire Carcos battle line had collapsed into a rout. Planetary corridor is clear, Admiral, Lieutenant Noor reported. relief evident in her voice. "But we have a new problem. Ground sensors show approximately 40,000 Carcos troops clustered around major population centers on Elithra Prime." Maya's jaw tightened. The fight wasn't over. It was just changing arenas. "Marines," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "It's your stage." Within the fiery storm of atmospheric re-entry, Master Sergeant Rafik Hale double-checked the latches on his squad's combat armor. His voice barked over the comms, a bedrock of calm in the violent shuddering of the drop pod. "Listen up. Rules of engagement are simple. If they're shooting at civilians or they're shooting at us, they go down. Any collateral damage is a failure. We are not here to look brave. We are here to end fear. Got it?" His pod slammed into the rich soil of Elithra with a bone-jarring impact you could feel in your teeth. The hatch blew, and he burst into the planet's pale cyan sunlight, immediately taking fire. He moved with the fluid grace of a man who, practiced this violent dance 1,000 times in 1,000 simulations. "Contact front. 2 squads hold up in the administrative complex. Sora, left window, now." A single, heavy thump from Private Sora Ito's rail carbine silenced a Carcos firing slit. Across the city, Lieutenant Kiahi Anand led Blue Lance through a residential block that told a heartbreaking story. Doors were broken in, toys and crayons scattered on the stairs like fallen leaves. "Sir, we've got civilians pinned down in Tower 7, her scout reported urgently. 24 hostiles at least. They're using the kids as cover for their crossfire." Kiahi took a deep breath, then another, centering herself. "No heroic angles," she commanded. "This is about precision. Lynn, get me a schematic of the ventilation system. Gomez, prep the flash foam grenades. On my mark, we're going through the kitchen wall, not the front door. Remember who we are. We are the hands that catch, not the fists that flail." The designated wall folded inward under a controlled breach. The flash foam grenades hissed, swallowing the sound of enemy gunfire into muffled curses and panicked shouts. The squad moved as one living organism. Shields went up first to protect bodies. Weapons fired second. Minutes later, the stairwell, once a death trap, was filled with the sobbing, grateful sounds of rescued families. A small Elithri child, no older than 5, looked up at Kiahi, her own terrified face reflected in the lieutenant's polished visor. "You came," she whispered, her voice shaking but full of awe. Kiahi's eyes crinkled at the corners, a smile that the child could feel even if she couldn't see it. "Always. Thank you so much for joining." Start with a soft, slightly melancholic musical undertone that builds in intensity. They cried out for help across the silent expanse of space. A whole civilization, the Elithri, on the brink of being extinguished by the brutal Carcos Dominion. They sent their pleas to every known frequency, to every powerful empire, to anyone who might listen. And the galaxy was silent. The galactic powers were too busy, too cautious, too indifferent. To them, Elithra was just another statistic, another world about to fall. But one signal, a desperate, final prayer, found its way to a species many had written off as storytellers and dreamers, a species that had learned its lessons in fire and loss, and that species answered. Music shifts to a more determined, powerful theme. On the bridge of the Terran flagship, Admiral Maya watched the chaos unfold. The Carcos were closing in, a fleet built on conquest and cruelty. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Noor, confirmed the grim reality. "Admiral, fresh signatures at System Edge. 2nd Carcos Battle Group. Heavy." It was a classic pincer movement, designed to crush any hope of resistance. Maya's voice was calm, a stark contrast to the storm gathering outside. "Of course," she said, as if expecting nothing less. She wasn't here to negotiate from a position of weakness. "Signal them. One chance to withdraw. Broadcast it on their emergency band and their pride band." The reply was exactly what she expected, a burst of digital contempt laced with bravado. The Carcos weren't just here to conquer, they were here to make a statement. They burned for the planet, eager to add another world to their list of broken civilizations. Maya turned to her carrier group commander. Her orders were simple, yet carried the weight of countless lives. "Seraphim, it's your sky." And with that, the sky became Terran. From the great carriers, wings of fighters rose like avenging angels. Commander Imani Cho, leading the Seraphim, threaded her squadrons directly into the teeth of the enemy formation. Her voice crackled over the comms, a beacon of clarity in the coming firestorm. "We're kites, they're spears," she briefed her pilots. "Make them miss, then cut the shaft." What followed was not a brawl, but a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. Human fighters darted and weaved, their movements unpredictable, fluid. Missiles bloomed like deadly flowers across the void, only to be swatted down by human point defense systems that looked like rain made of pure mathematics. A Carcos destroyer, arrogant in its size, tried to punch a hole straight through to low orbit. It was met head-on by 3 Terran interceptors. They didn't engage in a circling dogfight. They flew straight at it, emptied their entire magazines into its engine throat, and peeled away with centimeters to spare. It was a display of breathtaking skill and nerve. No one had to be a martyr today. Skill would do just fine. In 16 minutes, it was over. The second Carcos battle group, the supposed hammer blow, died even quicker than the first. They had come expecting a slaughter. They found an execution. And they were the ones on the block. The message was sent, loud and clear. Even across fleets who don't believe in mercy, they learn fear. Music softens, becoming more hopeful and poignant. With the threat in orbit neutralized, the situation on the ground quickly changed. Reports flooded the command bridge. Ground resistance collapsing. Civilians stabilizing. Casualty numbers lower than feared. Admiral Maya closed her eyes for a single, long moment, the tension finally leaving her shoulders. "Good," she breathed. "Spin up the humanitarian protocols. The Terran mission wasn't just about winning a fight, it was about saving a people." On the surface of Elithra, a transformation began. Where brutalist barricades had stood just hours before, clean, white med tents now rose. Dr. Amara Singh, the chief medical officer, moved through rows of shaken Elithri families. She moved with a profound calm, as if she could fold all the noise and chaos of the world into a single, steady heartbeat. She knelt beside a trembling father, gently adjusting a biosplint around his child's delicate, finned arm. "We're here," she told him, her voice a promise. "Your child will keep that arm. I promise you." Back on the Terran flagship in the main command hall, Arya Solin, the Elithri commander, stood ramrod straight, her face a mask of exhaustion and disbelief. The doors hissed open and Admiral Maya entered. Alone. No guards, no entourage. And in that moment, Arya felt something she had not felt in days, a sense of safety that wasn't just a denial of the horrific reality. "Commander Solin," Maya said, respectfully inclining her head, "I am sorry we met like this." Arya's reply was a single word, heavy with 1,000 meanings, with the weight of a world. "You came." Maya's response was simple, as if stating a law of physics. "We answer when called." Dr. Cale Rin, a senior Elithri scientist, stepped forward, his voice rough with emotion. "What? What do we owe you for this?" Maya raised a single eyebrow. The idea seemed foreign to her. "Nothing," she said. "You don't owe us for not dying." Cale, ever the logician, struggled to comprehend. "That makes no strategic sense." "It makes human sense," Maya replied softly, her words echoing in the chamber. "We have an old saying, your emergency is our schedule." And at that, Arya laughed. A sudden, bright, beautiful sound that cut through the tears streaming down her face. "I thought you humans were just storytellers in ships," she said. "Now I think perhaps your stories taught you how to be this." Maya just shrugged. The story is simple. If we don't stop bullies, we become their audience. Music swells to an inspiring, grand theme. 3 days later, in the hastily rebuilt council chamber, the Aegis Accord was signed, a pact between Elithra Prime and the Terran Defense Network. It promised mutual defense, humanitarian aid, and a promise more dangerous than any torpedo. We will not look away. The news of this accord rippled across the galactic lanes like a shockwave. Pirates in the Rime Belts suddenly started taking much, much longer routes. Empires that had styled themselves as inevitable forces of nature suddenly discovered the virtues of caution. And from the quiet corners of the galaxy, a dozen small voices sent shy, hopeful pings toward Terra. The message was always the same. We heard what you did for Elithra. Could we talk? Admiral Maya, the warrior, became something she never trained to be, an ambassador carrying a sword she preferred not to draw, but would not hesitate to use. Her message was unwavering. To the miners of the Tayson Reach, if they raid you, they raid us. To the poet scholars of Orison, you do not have to arm your poets, we already did. And to the remnants of the Carcos Dominion, a chillingly simple directive. If you want peace, leave others' children alone. Back on Elithra, Arya and Kale stood on a balcony overlooking a city that was learning how to breathe again. Above them, human patrols traced soft, gentle arcs in the sky, flying alongside newly confident Elithri craft, 2 different silhouettes, together reshaping their shadows. A Terran medic was on the street below, patiently teaching a group of Elithri kids how to knot colorful braided bracelets. Nearby, a burly Terran Marine had knelt down, letting a small giggling child wear his helmet for a picture. Kale watched the scene, a sense of wonder in his voice. "Do you ever think," he asked, "that this is how legends begin?" Arya smiled, a true, warm smile that reached her eyes. She watched the simple, decent acts of kindness unfolding below. "No," she said softly. "I think this is how decent people behave when someone finally answers the call." They asked the galaxy for help. Only humans answered, with an Armada in one hand and an open, helping hand in the other. If you want to see Chapter 2, the story of the first Alliance convoy that dares to sail the storm lanes under the protection of the Aegis Accord, let me know in the comments. And if you believe that a promise, when kept, can be stronger than any warship, then hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We have so many more stories to tell. Thank you for watching.